Romans 1:5 is really good. It says, through whom we have received grace and apostleship to bring about the obedience of faith for the sake of his name among all nations. Let's break it down. Through whom we have received grace and apostleship. So first of all, Paul is clear about who has given authority. This is not Paul being like, hey, I'm a learned person, I went to school, I'm from this family or this or that. That has nothing to do with grace or apostleship. And that's something we need to be clear about, because people will take others' words and be like, hey, I have been given authority because I went to school for a very long time. I've read the Bible over and over. That has nothing to do with being appointed as a leader in the church. The calling always comes from Christ. And then even at that, the demeanor of when he's saying this, which is why we need to look at our leaders, is when they say, I have been given authority by God, must be through grace and humility, as Paul's doing here. When somebody is putting themselves on a pedestal and saying, I have authority, be careful. Ministry is not earned, it is received. Everything comes by grace. And Paul will later write about this. Salvation comes through grace. Righteousness comes from grace. Obedience comes from grace. Grace will always supersede apostleship. God does not send people out empty. He will fill them first and then send them out. Calling without grace leads to a burnout. Grace without obedience leads to complacency. To bring about the obedience of faith. This part's huge. Paul does not say obedience instead of faith, but he's saying obedience adds to your faith. He's saying obedience comes from faith. Trust Christ, submit to Christ, follow Christ. If faith never produces obedience, Paul would probably question if it's real faith at all. Obedience is the fruit, not the root. Paul's already pointing out something that's super important. We are not saved by obedience, but saving faith always will produce obedience. Obedience is the evidence, not the entry. And we'll talk more about that later in Romans. For the sake of his name. You gotta remember, Paul's writing here and he's putting these things down for a reason. He's saying the goal is not for Paul's reputation. The goal is not for Israel's supremacy. It's not for the growth of the church. The goal is to glorify Jesus. Every act of obedience is going to point back to him. And lastly, among all the nations. I love this because this is not just for the Jews. This is for everybody. Not just for the Jews, not just for the Romans, not just for one culture. So when you see people through the history that we are the one people, that this other people are not as good as this other people, this completely demolishes that. You'll see religions like Hebrew Israelites, other people that call themselves Christians, and a plethora of other things. That they'll say, we are the chosen people. This is not for you. Jesus Christ did not come for you. He came for only for us. Clearly he says all nations. Unless there's a mistranslation here, I don't understand how you can misunderstand that. So question, does your faith lead you to submit to Jesus? Or do you only submit when it's comfortable for you?